The peeler. I was almost cleaved with an axe by a scarecrow. My uncle owns a horse ranch. At the ranch, we will often have visitors from all walks of life. Parents trying to teach their kids to ride, customers who always come here wishing to ride a horse, and finally, we have school kids who are brought here by the school to learn how to ride, obviously. As a result, I didn't think much of it when I was sitting behind the back and working the potatoes, and my uncle appeared carrying a scarecrow over his shoulder. I didn't bother asking what was up as he placed it down behind me and left. I was left back to my own thoughts and trying to make sure my earpods don't fall into the bucket of water I was working in. I listened to my song longer, even when I heard a sudden crunch behind me. I just assumed one of the potatoes had fallen off, so I continued cutting the potato I had and placed it in the bucket of water. Then I heard another potato fall. It happened to fall as I was reaching out to grab the other potato from the sack next to me. And that was when it dawned on me. All the potatoes were in the sack right next to me. If all the potatoes were in the sack next to me, then maybe I'd imagined that knocking sound from behind me. But then again, I heard the sound, but this time it sounded like sand crumbling under feet, and rather violently. I looked back behind me, and there stood a man dressed in a scarecrow outfit. He was yanking at the shovel as hard as he could, but then he turned and saw me. He paused and he started yanking harder, and he pulled it off, swinging it at me. I screamed and some of the grass got into my damn mouth and my throat, but he missed. But still, feeling the cold wind of that thing pass so close to my face made me realize I was in so much trouble and I had to leave. I turned and ran out of there, ducking down so that the thing wouldn't hit me. I ran all the way to the front of the barn before I looked back. Then a hand grabbed my arm and I squealed. My uncle looked down at me. He asked me if I found the onions he put there. I told him what happened and he went back to check. He says he didn't find anything, but I just couldn't continue working back there, and so I went to work at the front of the house. The meter. A scarecrow followed me through the streets. Okay. So I met a scarecrow last week. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say, but it was a man dressed in a scarecrow mask, and he was a very creepy dog. I was walking back home from the park, where I've been practicing my skateboard skills, so I was pretty tired and just wanted to sleep. Instead, immediately as I walk out of the park, there stands an orange-faced man. He wore a hat with dried grass and baggy clothes, and he was staring at me. I knew there was no way a real human being would wear that, so I greeted him, hoping that it would make him normal. But he didn't respond. He just continued staring at me. At this point, I was just too tired to be bothering myself with this, so I walked around him and hurried off. When I was a distance away, I glanced back, only to find he was still standing there. But he turned around, and now he was staring at me, and it was starting to become a bit creepy. So after a distance, I admittedly forgot about the man. I put on my headphones and played my music as loud as I could. It always gets me really pumped, and I feel like I can run up a mountain. The downside being, I tend to be completely cut out from the world around me. I have to look at people's faces to see what they are saying, and as I was walking, I saw the faces of the people around me turn to shock, and others blatantly pointed at me. I didn't know what was wrong, but the panic reached me, and so I ran. I then looked back, and my entire view was taken in by this orange face, yellow teeth, and pink mouth. I didn't know how long he had been following me, or when he had opened his mouth like that. I just knew that I wasn't dealing with it. I ran as fast as I could the rest of the way and looked back to see the guy still standing there, head tilted and smile still on his face. The Stifler. I was beaten by a Scarecrow during athletics day. I don't know whether to be proud or embarrassed that I have the type of scary story that just perfectly fits this category, but here we are. It's more creepy than scary, but they are both in it enough for me. The story took place at our school's athletics day. Our school has days in a year where we go to our town sport field and practice athletics. The athletic type are always looking forward to the day because if you do really well, you could be accepted into the regional teams, and if you push yourself enough, you could be an Olympian. I, on the other hand, was really excited for the day because that was the day I was going to finally tell my crush how I felt about her. For almost the entire year, I always had a crush on this one girl. I don't know how, but my friends found out that if I didn't tell her on that day, then they would tell me. I was so angry at them at first, but when the day arrived, I found I felt so excited and nervous. We met at the gates of the field and went to sit on the stands. The day began early. By 8:30, there were already people finishing up their races. And a few minutes later, my friends left, taking the girls' friends away and leaving the two of us there. The guys wouldn't stop winking at me as they left. So there I was, talking to her for a long time. She smelled so good, and every little joke I said, she would burst out laughing. I'm not going to lie, I could have stayed there forever. I didn't want to tell her that I liked her too soon, or it would have ruined the atmosphere if she said no. But this didn't make my friends happy, and they started to make it known. They started playing with my shins. As I was talking to her, I felt a hand caress my shin. I immediately kicked it away and tried not to show her what I'd done. Then, as I spoke with her some more, I felt a hand wrap around my ankle and yank me. She asked what was wrong, and I told her nothing. I finally gave in and told her that I had something to tell her, hoping that this would make them stop. She giggled and asked what was it, and I could almost tell that she already knew what it was. But just then, I felt another tug. At that point, I got really annoyed. I looked between the slits of the chairs, and I saw eyes glittering at me from between the stands. I put my hand there and shoved the face as hard as I could. The head went down, and the hand around my ankle lessened its grip. But at that point, my mind was racing with something else. A beard. I felt a beard on that face I just pushed. None of my friends had beards. But then, my leg was grabbed with two hands now, and then I felt teeth sink into my shin. At first, I didn't want to scream, because I didn't want to ruin my moment with my crush, but I could feel my face contorting, and she stopped giggling and asked what were they doing to me. I tried to stifle the scream, and that's when she looked down. Her face spread like elastic for a moment, and then she let out this massive scream. I looked down to see the blood pooling into my shoes, and also I saw the masked face of a man. I kid you not, there was a man wearing a Scarecrow mask, and he was biting on my leg. I too screamed. At that point, I don't know what happened at the fields. All I know is that the people who should have been too far away were suddenly around me, yanking me. I fell on the floor and held on to my leg. It was so hot. I don't know how I managed to hold on without screaming. I was carried away on a stretcher, and I remember looking up at the blue sky, and all around me there were faces of my classmates. Then I heard shouting. I looked down to see our teachers dragging along a man dressed like a hobo with a Scarecrow mask on. Backstory on that guy. He was homeless and he slept on the fields, had unknowingly been sleeping above his home, and so that happened, I think of course we need to do something about homelessness. We need to help the sick and the ill. I think we do. But at the same time, I couldn't have been more creeped out in my life, knowing that I was basically sitting on a man's home that day. The hearer. My colleague asked I keep a scarecrow in my class, and I found out that it was alive. Oh no, I had a scarecrow incident happen to me in my class. So it was a Monday morning, and I was preparing the lesson that I'd be teaching the kids that day when my coworker arrived. I don't like to say it, but she's the most bizarre person I've ever met. She's really into art and teaches the arts and culture class, so she is often seen walking around with props, which wouldn't be strange. What I always found strange though, and so does everyone else in my defense, is that she will often be seen dressed in the most strange clothes. One time she came to work wearing a dress with suns made from cardboards sewn into the fabric. So yeah, that is the type of person I was dealing with. Anyway, she came to my class that morning, and I tried to be cordial and smile, but when she told me what happened, I will admit, my smile started to feel really heavy. She told me that she needed a space to place her props, and she wanted to use, well, my classroom. I really should grow more of a backbone, but at that point, I didn't have one, so I told her, okay. When my class arrived that day, who comprised of mostly 9-year-olds, they couldn't keep their eyes off the lion costume laying on the corner. It was so annoying. I told her that she could bring in the things and left. I didn't know what she would bring in, and when I returned, I found out. I found that she left everything wherever she wanted, and there were so many things. We had to reorganize them around my desk so the children could have space to freely move around their tables. Also, so the kids could stop playing with those props. But as I was sitting there and trying to teach them, I then felt something. You see, one of the costumes was a scarecrow, and we'd placed that under my desk. And for space sake, I'd placed my feet on top of it. But then, I felt it. I felt the thing move. It slowly moved and rolled away, pushing my feet off. I remember pausing for a while, and the kids were confused. But I continued speaking again while pushing the thing with my feet, trying to test if I was right in my assessment. However, it didn't move again, and I was sure that I'd made a mistake. When break arrived, I went out to go make myself coffee, and I returned to my class to find that someone had placed that scarecrow on my desk. It was too small to be a real-life person, so it couldn't have moved by itself, I thought. And so I realized that my earlier fears were unfounded. It would have to be as tall as a child. At least that's what I thought at first. But then, as I was having my coffee, I heard a soft sound. It sounded like breathing. I looked around a bit, not knowing from where it was coming. Then I saw the scarecrow. As a joke, I leaned forward and brought my face to its mouth, and I felt a warm breath on my cheek. I immediately got up and headed out of there. I told the security guards, and they said they'd go check it out. When I went back to my class, they'd taken everything out. I'd never agreed to take anything else into my class if I can help it. And since then, I've never agreed to take anything into my class if I can help it.